Hey, it's Jeff W. Welsh. Welcome to the Hardcore Happiness Podcast, where we talk about the art and science of how to create your best life. Expect to discuss mindset and purpose, the positive and the profound, and anything else that contributes to the healthiest, happiest, most successful life you can imagine. This is your sanctuary against fear-mongering and propaganda, the place to focus on a life of well-being and satisfaction and transform your world. I'm Jeff W. Welsh, and this is Hardcore Happiness.
Welcome again from the mountains of the great American Southwest, and thanks for joining me on the Hardcore Happiness Podcast. Today's episode is titled about purpose, but it's really about hope and about living your life with joy. I've got a quote from Carl Jung that said, "The lack of meaning in life is a soul sickness whose full extent and import our age has not yet begun to comprehend." I think that probably applies to all ages, including the one that we're in. If you ask people to list the most important things in their life, you typically will get a pretty short list, and they'll say things like God, country, and family. Sometimes people will get work in there as well, but usually it's God, country, and family, something like that. But there is a condition that presupposes and subsumes all the rest, and that's purpose. And we talk about purpose a lot here because it's really that important. In fact, it's the most important consideration because it's like a container that holds everything else. It happens before any other considerations. Your purpose is literally the reason that you're here. And by here, I mean alive on this planet and others once we get there, as a conscious and sentient being. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that once you decide to live on purpose, your whole life will change. So the most important choice you can make is to live your life with purpose. I've spoken at length in other podcasts and written about how unlikely it is that you exist at all. Add that to the fact that you not only do you exist, but you're conscious. You can think, and you're reading this, and you're listening to this, or you're watching me. And the likelihood of all that coming together is basically zero. But here you are. The miracle of your existence then begs this question: what should I do with this impossibly rare gift? What are you doing with your life? What do you want to do with your life? It's more than just work. It's more than just hanging out with the bros, right? What is it that you want to achieve while you're here? It's finite. It's limited. You're not going to be here forever. Here's something you might not have realized. You get to choose your life meaning. It's not waiting in the cosmos for you to discover it. It's something that you pick and then you have to work at maintaining. No matter what your physical condition or your money status or where you live, you have the power to decide who and what and why you are. This is a huge part of why in our Hardcore Happiness Project we say create your world, because you get to pick. And there's something else you might not have thought about. Every day, with every action you take, you are creating your identity. You are defining who you are to yourself and to other people. Your actions, the way you present yourself, the way you think about yourself in the world defines your identity. It's who you are. It's the way that you become from your own actions and thoughts. And since you define yourself every day, you might as well do it on purpose. You're already on the journey, so you might as well set the destination. This is one situation in which those who wander can very easily become lost. It's possible, of course, to not choose a life meaning or purpose. That's the choice of no choice. That's the decision not to make a decision. A lot of people do that, but when they have no purpose, no overarching idea of what their life is about to guide them, their goals, if they have any at all, are usually pretty short-lived and shallow. They might mistake their desire for purpose. They may think that their desire to get a nice car or make lots of money or have as many sex partners as possible, to buy stuff and have fun, is their purpose, but that's not purpose. Those are goals, and they're pretty short-term goals. Without an overall blueprint that speaks to a longer, more sustainable future, those folks typically go back and forth between jobs, relationships, and goals of convenience. With no direction for their life, those people will take whatever job pays a little bit more, spend time with whatever people are easiest to find and be around, and live for the weekend, as they say. They have no satisfaction in their trade typically, and they view the entire work week as a block of events to be avoided whenever possible. Call in sick, take time off. Think about it. The majority of your time during the week is going to be spent working at something. No matter how rich or how poor you are, you're going to be doing something during the week. You might as well enjoy it, right? And the things that you choose, your purpose, will then dictate the kind of work that you do. If you don't, you kind of just survive the week and then comes the weekend. Those people's lives might revolve around a bunch of dopamine hits. Just distraction, right? Doom scrolling, TV binging, watching your favorite series for 7 or 8 hours, maybe organized sports, game after game after game, or maybe hanging out in video games for hours. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with scrolling the internet a bit or watching TV or video games or whatever. Nobody can work all the time. But if those pursuits actually replace you living your life, you might have a problem. Pause here for a second and reflect on your own life. When you have your time off, what is it that you do? What actions do you take, and how much time do you spend on those actions? Is that stuff actually moving you closer to becoming the person you want to be? Are those actions actually refining you into a life that you would rather have? Or are you just kind of treading water in the same thing time after time? You can tell because when Sunday afternoon comes along, if you find yourself kind of being depressed at the thought of getting up Monday and starting all over again, you might want to think about what it is you're spending your time and devoting your thoughts and intention to. Your lifetime can pass with unbelievable and frightening speed when this paradigm of no paradigms has been chosen as your life. I've counseled so many people in their 40s and 50s and beyond, and they're devastated to suddenly realize that they've been adrift on the sea of possibilities that their life has presented to them. I've seen many people who go back to college or who start a new career in their 50s because they realize, wow, I got to get it together and do something here with the time I've got left. You might as well think about doing that now. This kind of existential crisis of meaningless manifests when our purposeless person we're talking about becomes envious of other people who are living with purpose. They're achieving the goals that are part of that purpose and weathering life's storms with their self-respect and well-being intact. All that comes when you have a sense of purpose. The person who's just kind of floating through life can become envious of people who are actually getting someplace that they want to be, especially in this era of social media where everybody's fabulous and has a Lamborghini, right? Everyone's on a cruise ship and has a private jet. You know that's not true, but you can't help but compare yourself to what you see. And unless you're pursuing your own purpose, you can become envious. That envy soon leads to a sense of entitlement where you might feel like you deserve to experience the same benefits even though you're not working for them. You want to reap the rewards of the purposeful delay of gratification that those people enjoy when they're pursuing their purpose. Keep doing that, and as the years go by, that entitlement can turn into regret, and regret can quickly crystallize into bitterness, despair, and rage. There's a lot of angry people, and they're angry at the world that it didn't give them what they wanted, and they never realized that they didn't work for what they wanted. And the first part of that work is developing a plan. Who do you want to be? What do you want out of life? You don't have forever. Figure this out. Once you get an idea of what it is you want to be, you can then kind of start to formulate a plan, and that plan can turn into a long-term purpose. The tragic part of that tale is that nobody ever told these people that living a life of purpose could help them bypass that particular brand of hell that we just described. Here's the good news, the best news of all. You always have the inalienable choice to determine your own meaning, even if at first glance your life seems predestined. For example, let's imagine that your calling is to serve God as your highest purpose. That's a pretty extreme, pretty intense choice. But even if you feel called, you still have to accept the calling. There's still choice in that. Maybe you have children and rightfully decide that taking care of them is your highest purpose. Well, there's a lot of people who contribute to the biological genesis of offspring, but they still have to choose to be a parent. My point is that there's lots of things that can happen to you in your life when you're not paying attention, or many things that you're called to do very strongly that you feel like is predetermined will, that this is what I must do. There's still choice to shape that within your purpose, no matter what it is. To be clear, it's important to know that you're going to take many smaller, short-term steps on the path of a long-term meaning. Imagine our friend who wants to be a priest, perhaps, dedicated specifically to serving God within the context of a particular denomination. There are facets of even that carefully prescribed calling. Our person who wants to be the priest has to choose as a part of his or her purpose to behave in accordance with specific teachings and beliefs. Those who are called for that kind of thing have to choose to spread their beliefs to other people. They choose to become intimately familiar with their chosen belief structure, memorize large passages of their holy books, and so forth. I'm talking about that specific purpose because that is one that can feel very, very much ordained. If those people still have to choose the way along that purpose, then the rest of us who are not in that tightly circumscribed of a path definitely have the ability to figure out what we want with the longer goals still in mind. Purpose encompasses many goals along the way, but you still have to be able to envision the larger picture. No matter what it is that you want to do, if you're not sure what you want to do, if you feel strongly called to do one particular thing, still think to the end of your life or the end of this life stage at least, and think about purpose as you go along doing those smaller goals. Another thing that can trip people up over time is the fact that they don't realize that your purpose is not a predestined gem that stays for your entire life, for most people, for anybody I know. In fact, your choice of purpose will change over time. It changes with the season of life that you're in. There's two reasons it's important to realize that your life meaning isn't something that is set at birth and remains until death. The first is that the fact that it underscores that your purpose, the meaning for your life, is in fact a choice. When you're very young, your purpose, even though you're not consciously aware of it in most cases, is to learn how to be a functioning person. You're learning what things are hot and shouldn't be touched, how to dress yourself, and how to eat by yourself, and all that kind of stuff. A little bit later, your purpose might be to get good grades in school and obey your parents and gain something useful from your education if you can. Maybe you get involved with a peer group in your school or your church or your community. These are all things that are slightly different purposes as you're growing up. Then in high school and college, there's a big transition, and your purpose is really to learn how to navigate relationships with significant others, your BFFs and your girlfriends and your boyfriends and all that kind of stuff. And then part of high school should hopefully be to gain the knowledge and skills you need to launch you into a career. But everybody who looks back on high school that I've ever talked about, no matter how focused and disciplined, the main thing they learned was how to get along as social skills, which are incredibly important, as I've talked about before too. Right after school, a lot of people will have kids and choose to become parents. Notice those are two different things. Having kids is something that can happen accidentally in many cases and biologically comes to its conclusion. But then you still have to choose to be a parent. Others will go straight into the workforce, and some will go on to more specialized education because they've chosen a specific career that needs that. Maybe you want to become a dentist or a veterinarian or a lawyer or something. You got to go to more school to get that done. Many people will embark on trade careers. I have great friends who are welders and auto mechanics and plumbers. And yeah, they make a lot of money and they typically are pretty darn happy. And many of them own their own businesses. So they've taken that choice and made it into the purpose for this phase of their life. All of those kind of possibilities are choices that are best made when taken in light of your overall purpose. Remember, short-term goals, even short-term goals of several years, going to college, whatever, are just smaller chunks of a larger purpose. The second reason that it's important to realize is that your purpose doesn't end when the career is over or when the kids have moved out of the house. Whatever you have been doing for a long time typically will come to an end, and sometimes joyfully and successfully. That's not a sad thing. Empty nest is always quite a transition, and it's a sad time when the kids that you've raised for 20 or 30 or 40 years, depending on how many kids you have, all successfully flew the coop and left the nest and went on to their happy careers and their lives. That still can leave you feeling like you don't know what comes next. The optimal solution to these kinds of major life transitions is to realize that it's just time to choose a new purpose. You don't have to be stuck. You're not done. A lot of people get to that point where they retire, or they've been taking care of their aging parents and their parents pass on, or their kids move out, or their main career is over. Now what? You're not done. It's just time to choose a new purpose. And in many cases, you may have more freedom to do so. My belief is that as long as you're conscious, you have an obligation to pursue your purpose relentlessly and with determination. You know, it requires considerable thought and insight to choose a meaning for your life. This most important decision is an intense and complicated undertaking. It's best facilitated, if you can, with the guidance and support of someone who has already walked that path and has some experience mentoring others along the way. Your best bet will be to work with someone who's more than 2 steps ahead of you on the path. Here's an example. There's a very well-known internet personality, somebody that I respect and follow, who recently published a book on parenting. And this person's kids aren't even 5 years old yet. Those of us who've had kids for a while kind of chuckle at that because parenting hasn't even started until those kids hit teenage years and go on. There's a whole lot of parenting that that person hasn't even gotten to yet. The point is to work with somebody who's already personally lived the bigger picture. I'm not saying that you have to work with somebody to figure out your purpose and to move forward. But if you feel like you're stuck or you feel like maybe you're not really on the right path, it doesn't hurt to work with somebody who concentrates in this area to say, hey, let's help you step by step work out some things. There's a few general considerations we can talk about that are true no matter what your individual circumstances are. The first is that your choice of life meaning, your purpose, should be all-encompassing and doable. You want to think big and long-term. Remember, your purpose isn't the same thing as a goal. There's probably going to be several goals inside your purpose. It might be a goal, for instance, for you to publish a blog. But that blog, even if you do it well and you're publishing it regularly, is only part of a larger purpose for you to bring your wisdom and experience to the rest of the world, to tell your stories to people you would otherwise have never met. And obviously, your choice of purpose, no matter how grand it is, still has to fit within the bounds of your physical reality, right? I don't know, with AI and all this stuff going on, maybe we can go beyond the bounds of our physical reality. That's a whole different podcast right there. The second consideration that applies to just about everybody in just about every circumstance is that when you're thinking about what should my purpose be, what do I want to go for long term that will get me where I want to be, that will make me the person I envision I want to be, is passion. There's a couple of reasons you should be passionate about the purpose you choose. First of all, the feeling of passion, if you engage in something, is your indicator that that chosen purpose suits your personality and disposition and the appropriate phase of your life. If you're passionate about something, if you really get turned on by what it is you're doing, that means that you're in the right place and you're doing something that is appropriate for you right now. And of course, the second part about passion is that if you're not passionate about what you've chosen for a purpose, you probably won't stick with it. You have to be doing it long enough to make the pursuit of your purpose the actual backbone of your lifestyle. You have to live it, not just talk about it. The third thing that applies to almost everybody when choosing purpose, I believe strongly, is some aspect of service. I believe that your chosen purpose has to, at least peripherally, benefit other people. I think this is true not just because we strive to be nice people, although that's a great thing to strive for, but I think we're all part of the same energy field. I think that phylogenetically and psychologically, we're pack animals. We typically have a higher level of well-being in the company of other people. Beyond all that, every person who strives to pursue purpose will be challenged along the way, sometimes severely. Unless your purpose serves something larger than yourself, it's easy to become discouraged when the going gets tough. You have to be able to look beyond your own personal pain and suffering and inconvenience to a higher ideal, whatever that is, to be able to weather the storms and stay focused on your worthy goal, to stay focused on your purpose. This is not a religious thing. If religion is how you view your higher purpose, that's great. I'm talking about an end goal, something that you see yourself doing that gives your life meaning. That's the higher purpose I'm talking about. And then if things get tough for you personally, but part of your purpose is reading to school kids on the weekend and you don't really feel like it, thinking about those kids who are going to benefit from what you're doing will get you out of bed on days that otherwise you might not have been able to do. This is the great side effect of purpose as you go on with your life. When you have a larger transpersonal sense of purpose, it also creates psychological resilience. When life inevitably tries to derail you with tragedy, your overall purpose allows you to focus on a goal above and beyond your sorrows and grief. This is what we were talking about. It serves as both a distraction and a reminder that there's more to this than just you and your personal troubles. So when you're thinking about purpose, think about how does it benefit other people? Take this immediate situation right here, right now. My goal right now is to give you some information through this podcast that you can watch on YouTube and sit down and think, wow, I need to think about these ways to get my life together and to move forward. I need to think about who and what and why I want to be. But this is just a goal. This podcast is a goal. It's not my purpose. My purpose is to help people lead long, happy lives of well-being. And if this podcast is part of it, if this serves part of the purpose, then this is a worthy goal. Without a larger purpose, you might founder, you might sit and ruminate helplessly over your troubles. You might sit and think about, man, I don't like my situation. I don't like who I am. I don't like where I'm at. I don't like the people I hang out with. I shouldn't have said that. What am I even doing here? All of that can just roll and ruminate and rumble around and leave you feeling completely despondent. Once you get a purpose, that stuff starts to leave your sphere of consciousness as you think more and more about where you're headed. If you lose your direction like that, it doesn't bring you any closer to any resolutions of your problems. It stops any progress that you were already making in your life, and ultimately, it can result in stasis where you're just stuck in activity and despair. It's easy to get our daily existence mixed up with our purpose. It's easy to think, oh, I have a purpose. I go to work and I bring home the bacon and I drink with my buddies on the weekend. That's probably not really a purpose. That's probably the way you exist. Think bigger. The way to fix that is to bring the activities of your daily existence into alignment with your chosen purpose. What I mean by that is do the introspective work. Think about who it is you want to be. Where do you want to go? Are you happy if you stay in exactly the place you're in for the rest of your life? If the answer is yes, then God bless, go on and do that and fulfill your purpose the way you see it now. But when things change, don't be afraid to reevaluate. Think about who and what and why you want to be, how you can benefit other people. What's the highest, best purpose for your life? Think about that, meditate on it, journal it out, seek guidance from a respected mentor that you trust, and then follow that path with integrity. Don't let anything knock you off the path. Do what you mean to do. Follow that path right now. If you start to live your own purpose, if you live on purpose now, you can create your world. The Hardcore Happiness podcast is live every week in video form on YouTube and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts. You can visit the podcast page at Jeff W. Welsh Studio, where you can see the past episodes and listen to the latest one. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And please come check out the links page at jeffwwelsh.com to contact me or if you're interested in having me speak to your organization. You can subscribe to my work on the Hardcore Happiness blog page, on the Jeff W. Welsh Substack and Medium accounts, and you can follow my accounts on Instagram and X. To support this community, you can donate through Patreon. All of my accounts are Jeff W. Welsh. Don't forget that middle W or you'll go someplace else. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Jeff W. Welsh.